So the vacuum tube revolver became available in some of the missions recently, and lots of people asked me about it because apparently this weapon was pretty rare. This is an expansion weapon, so you can get it from the collection book with ease, and it's something that you can also get in normal llamas, but I have never actually used this weapon or ever heard anybody actually talk about it. So I got a copy from Skulls, brought it to a 140 mission, and put it to the test. And I was wildly impressed because the first time I actually tried this was in a 132 zone with a full party, and this thing was hitting so hard that I'm still convinced that it might be bugged, and I'm going to try and not use too much of this gameplay throughout the rest of the video. But while we're talking about it, I can show you that I was headshotting, critting for over 900,000 damage, and normal body shots were doing like 90,000, which is an insane spread. You can't just 10 times your damage that easily, or so I thought. I looked a little closer and I realized that the damage is doubled with a headshot, and if the headshot gets multiplied by the crit, yeah, you can hit well into the hundreds of thousands of damage. Again, that might have been bugged. My team was boosting me pretty high, but I was shocked by the amount of damage I was receiving from this weapon, and if that's really how hard this thing is hitting in a full party and what I was experiencing wasn't a glitch, then this thing is way stronger than I ever thought it would be. Now for the rest of this video, I'll show you what I did solo in a 140 zone, where this thing was actually still hitting very hard. This thing wasn't quite doing outlandish damage like it was before, but it was still headshotting and critting for the hundreds of thousands of damage, and it was taking out all enemies completely fine, and I am honestly quite impressed with this weapon. And without further ado, let's talk about the best perks for this weapon and how you should spec it. So obviously with vacuum tube weapons, you are limited to nature, and this does have the normal perk spread with the 6 perk where you can have affliction, slowed and stared, headshot eliminations, and I believe 5 headshots increase your range damage. I'm not sure about that last one, but I know that this weapon does have the ability to have headshot eliminations cause explosions, and that might be preferred for this. Before I get into the rest of this perks, this is a pistol. It is very high damage, but most pistols that I've been talking about on the channel are high damage, single target, but really bad at crowd clearing. So you're almost certainly going to need some kind of secondary weapon like a rocket launcher to be eliminating hordes of zombies. But if you have headshot eliminations cause an explosion, you can actually get some area of effect damage, and I'll show once again, I've showed this before on the channel. When I reviewed the Duelist, I'd actually found that it's more effective in a crowd when I use headshot explosions because it eliminated more enemies upon elimination, and that was actually, while less DPS than, you know, damage to afflicted or slowed and stared with that 5th perk compatibility, it actually cleared out the crowd really well, and I was really impressed by that. So the perks on this are interesting because you can roll double crit damage and reload on this. I'm not going to recommend mag size because it has a 10 mag size, but it consumes 2 ammo per shot, and as far as I could tell, Calamity was still compatible. If you don't know about Calamity, she is technically the highest damage pistol buff hero in the game besides Gunblazer Southie, but he requires a phase dash, and that's really jinky, and I don't like using it. But Calamity gives you a 60% damage buff and a 75% impact buff if you run her in the lead for the first 6 shots. As far as I'm aware, that is the actual first 6 shots, not the first 6 pieces of ammo to be consumed. So if that confused you, then because this shoots 2 ammo at a time, you technically consume 6 ammo after 3 shots. But from what I could experience, she was buffing all 5 of the shots that you can get with this. And my point is, as long as you have 6 or less bullets in the magazine, if you're using a pistol, you definitely want Calamity as your lead instead of Beetlejuice or Ranger Deadeye. Those are the other best heroes for the pistols. I'll link my video on it in the description below. It's an old video, but I think it's still relevant, and you guys can set up a great loadout that way. But I want to keep this thing with that 5 shots just for Calamity, so I definitely recommend reload on this. You can absolutely go mag size. It has a 2.5 second reload time, which is a long time for a pistol, and the reload still felt a little slow even with a maxed out reload perk. So I'm going to recommend that there, but if you don't care about reload or mag size, then damage would give you more damage per bullet, but you're definitely going to want at least reload or mag size on a weapon like this. And what was interesting is you can go double crit damage on this. So if you really like totally rocking out, then you could throw away my pistol loadout video because I don't even think I mentioned that. I don't know if it existed at the time, but if you want to run a totally rocking out build and you want to go double crit damage on this and pair it with some headshots, I wouldn't be surprised if in a full party you can get over 1 million damage on a headshot crit, and that would be an extremely fun way to play and something you might want to try out if you're looking to have some fun. All around, I am going to recommend crit rating crit damage, which I normally wouldn't do for pistols. I really don't stand by that. I think that you really want to smoothen out the damage with double damage or, you know, fire rate damage. It is less damage per second, but it's a lot more consistent because you only have 5 bullets in this thing, and you want all of those bullets to eliminate the enemies you're shooting. But with a 2x multiplier to the headshot damage, and with how hard this thing is hitting with the loadout I was using, pretty much every single enemy was dying anyway. And because I had affliction, if I didn't quite kill them with a non-crit, they would waste away with the affliction affliction perk, even though it's doing like nothing, it's still enough to finish off an enemy, and I found that to be perfectly good. And when it does crit, oh my god, that hundreds of thousands of damage definitely makes up for the lack of damage from its normal bullets, takes out mist monsters and smashers very, very comfortably, and it makes it a very, very useful weapon. So honestly, my recommendations is double crit damage reload if you're going to be going totally rocking out, and then just crit rating crit damage reload, because this weapon does have a base 15% crit chance and 75% crit damage, which is higher than normal if you're not aware, and that means you'll have about a 43% chance to crit anyway. So I'm talking about the non-crits, but a huge amount of your shots are going to be critting anyway. And then this bottom perk is interesting, because if you don't have affliction or slowness snared on this, then honestly, if you're using calamity in the lead, damage to stun, staggered, and frozen targets is actually probably fine, because the impact that she allows you to, you know, be getting with this weapon will be knocking enemies down fairly consistently, and doing extra damage to those targets could be a good way to go. Or you could go damage to miss monsters and bosses if you want to do a little bit more damage to the biggest targets that you'll be up against. Of course, however, if you are using a slowed and snared or affliction schematic, you are going to want to match the 6th perk, so damage to afflicted or damage to slowed and snared, depending on your 6th perk. So that's the vacuum tube revolver. Those are the best perks for it. I was impressed with this weapon. I'm really happy that I can show you guys another old weapon that is way better than everybody knew. Once again, I had never even used this weapon before yesterday, and from my experience with it, I might be using it again in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to, you know, support the channel, I can head on over here to the llama shop. If you guys want to use code Mista in your checkout, I'd really, really appreciate it. Like the video if you liked, dislike if you disliked it, subscribe if you're new. Hope you guys enjoyed, and have a nice day. And then